All right, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the August 2021 AEVA meeting. I think everyone signed in, used the Queensland app. Do we have any new people here? First timers? One. It's all right. Good evening. Toilet's just down the hall there, mate, if you need to go. Just make sure we're all doing the right thing with our masks. It looks like everyone is, and distancing. You bringing the stuff up? Okay. We're live streaming. I do a video recording, and it's on my YouTube channel, JD Solar and EV. And just one other thing tonight, if you want to ask a question, we have this blue box that some of you have seen already. It helps the audio on the stream and for the video if you're asking a question. So it's a soft thing, it can just be thrown around, so let's use that. All right, the agenda for tonight is we were going to have a few other speakers, but they've asked to move to next month. So we've got myself doing the regular EV planning infrastructure updates. Next slide, buddy. Next one. About 3 more slides. All right, here's the agenda. It's nice and clear. New projector. How good's that? All right. So I'm just going to give you, I'm going to be a bit of a speaker tonight because I've been doing an off-grid Nissan Leaf battery that I wanted to just update people on how that's going. So we have a bit of a chat about that. Jeff's come along to have a chat about hybrid energy amphibious caravans. He's going to talk for a while on that. Nathan's going to do his normal movement segment, which I believe is on hydrogen tonight, or hydrogen vehicles. And Francisco and I might have another chat about the IMEV that's gaining some interest at the moment. And does anyone else want to have a speak tonight? Okay. You can have a chat when I go through the event stuff if you like. So let's get underway. Recently held EV events. Isn't this great? You can read it now. It's perfect. Look at that. It's clear as. All right. So this is Carmageddon that was held end of July, and there's a few photos in this one, Les. But obviously, I organised Jeff and I to attend, and Graham was there with his Suzuki, and there's Mick de Brenny, who's the Minister. He's got the world's longest title, Minister for Energy, Renewables and Hydrogen, and Minister for Public Works and Procurement. He's there with Wolfgang from EMOS, and posing for a photo. He had a bit of a chat, and it was quite interesting what he had to say. Next one. Yep, there's yours truly up on the stage being a speaker, and Steve, who we've had talk here a couple of times. Next one. Yep. So this is a Renault Zoe that's been fitted out for autonomous driving. He was meant to come tonight, but he's going to come next meeting, so looking forward to that. I had a good long chat to him. Very, very interesting. These are just some of the EVs on display, and you notice I found a spot to put my EV triangle. So they were handing them out, so I had to put it on. The minister was coming. So next one, mate. The Audi E-Tron was on display, and I didn't get too much chance to look at this EV truck, but that was on display as well. The Renault Kangoo, Nissan Leaf, next one, mate. Model 3 and Graham's Suzuki. There were all the EVs there. So it was quite a good EV event. I probably should have put it on the last slide, but it's on the first I think it's on the first slide where it's the three of us. Can you bring that up possibly? I just want to bring your attention to the YouTube link to the full 4-hour video. Obviously you don't need to watch a full 4 hours, there it is there. For people on the stream might want to copy that down or something, but you can just skip through the sections, and it was quite a few good speakers there, wasn't it, Graham? It was like different topics and different opinions, so that's what I like to hear when discussing these type of things. All right, thanks mate. The July EV catch-up we had down at Logan IKEA, and another decent turnout, 11 EVs. We had, I think, 4 or 5 Model 3s, which is pretty good. I counted this guy in the EQC, but he wasn't actually part of it. That was just a doctor charging at the station there, working in the back of his car. 136, I think he was, wasn't it? 136, the business was. And it was a good turnout. Like, these things are always fun. So next one's down at Gold Coast. So, and there's a few more of us, and the infamous IMEV. Yes, more on that later.
And the security guard wasn't chasing you away. He was just bored.
Yeah, I didn't think he was. There was the security. I think the security, because we were the only ones left in the car park by the end of it, because and he's just like standing there, and you're like, we'll be fine. But the thing with the Logan IKEA is they have gates, so they can actually lock you out, or lock you in. So I didn't really want to get locked in anyway. But some of the Tesla guys, because I was one of the last to leave, they said, oh, we're just hopping over to the Logan Hyperdome if you want to come down. So there was like 4 Model 3s, and I went down there and just continued to talk for a little bit longer. So
they lock the gates to a charging station at IKEA.
Well, it's a private. It's a private thing. It's IKEA, and the one at Logan actually has the underground. It's above an underground car park, and then that's where the charger is, and then it does have gates. So the north side one doesn't have that, so I'm not really sure what the story is, but maybe we're more trustworthy on the north side. I don't know. Oh, come on. All right. Future EV events. There's a webinar coming up. This is an AEVA webinar on battery repair, reuse, repurposing and recycling. And I believe everyone who's a member should have received an invite to that. So just a reminder that that's coming up in 5 days' time. And Mark, did you want to have a chat? Yeah. Renew Toowoomba EV and Bike Expo coming up on the 29th of August. And Mark's actually, you're the organiser, so I'm the organiser. You're the man. Yeah. So come over here, mate, just for the cameras and stuff. And speak into this.
Oh, okay.
You just chat.
All right. Oh, thanks, John, and thanks for publicising our event too. We've got a fair bit happening. It's the 29th of August, and as I said, John's been good enough to publicise it amongst. We've got a couple of people coming along from the AEVA, from the club.
Yes.
But we're happy to take more. At the moment, we've got about 21 vehicles. It's going to be pretty spectacular having that number there, and I'd like to get a drone shot, which might be quite possible. It's the second one we've run. The first one was 2016, and a couple of people, Graham was certainly there. I don't know who else came in 2016, but it was a big day outside of Cobb & Co Museum. It's being opened by the Mayor at 9:30, and then Simone will be one of the first speakers about the pros and cons of the basics of electric vehicle. And then there's a guy, Rob Wilson, who you may know, who from Energy Queensland is talking. So there's, besides the expo, there's a list of speakers. Can you hear me under this thing? Yeah, okay. That sounds really good. Sounds much better to me anyway. Yeah, so he's speaking, and he might have had something to do with Energy Queensland and what they say about charging and stuff like this. He probably might have even spoken to one of your meetings. And other people, there's a relation of mine coming up to talk about autonomous driving. You may be interested in that. He's doing a reprise from last time. If you want to come, let me know, either tonight or by email. John's got the details, and you've probably got them.
Let me know and I'll pass it on.
Somebody else. The big benefit is that you get a free scone and coffee first thing you get there. It does start at 9:30, so you're going to be there leaving pretty early. But we'd like most cars to be there by 9 o'clock so we can put them in a position without running over people. And it runs through to 3:30, and that's the program of events for the day, both talks and people coming and looking at it. As I said last time, it was really successful, about 1,000 odd people during the day, which is not too bad. I reckon this time we'll get a couple of thousand at least. So it's going to be a big day. It's going to be quite good fun too if it all works out. And just keep your fingers crossed that the weather is kind to us, as all events are like this. We don't have, well, we don't have a lockdown. We've never had a lockdown in Toowoomba, except the first one. You guys have, but it looks like the masks are going to be off. So I've got a rundown of what you've got to do. One of them says you've got to wear your mask, but that may not be the case.
Yeah. So,
thanks, John.
all right. Anyone here haven't already said that they're keen to go? Yep, okay. All right, excellent. Have you actually let Mark know? Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm working that day, but any EV event like that, I would be attending otherwise. But yes, I'm sure it's going to be a mini EV experience, I think. So yeah, the next event is normally the Green Heart Fair at Carindale's on the 5th of September, but I've seen that that's gone online now. So actually, I've got a slide thing, but yeah. We'll be doing the EV catch-up at the Gold Coast, and I learnt my lesson last time not to hold it on a Friday afternoon because it takes forever to get down there in the traffic. So I'll be on a Saturday, I think, because I'm working on Sunday. 15th. Where are you going to do it? Probably, well, I'm actually open to suggestion, but it probably, yeah, TBA. It could be at Helensvale, but, you know, I know there is. What I actually did this time was, because only recently I joined like the Gold Coast Tesla Facebook group or whatever, and they seem to be quite interested in doing their own little thing, and I was actually asking them if there's a place that they like to meet, and I was going to just have it there. You know, don't want to be too pretentious for the Brisbane person to tell them where to have it. If they can tell me, then I'm happy to go there. Righto, then the next AEVA hall meeting is actually at AGM, so hopefully some people turn up for that one because it's normally a pretty quiet night. No one likes to nominate for doing this job, or doing the Treasury or Secretary, but actually going to check this year if we can just streamline it a bit, because every year it seems a little bit too lengthy. Can we do an AGM in 10 minutes, you reckon? Yeah.
But we need people to nominate, please.
Nominate what? Nominate who? Us? I nominate Simone. All right. Okay. The big one that we're working on like nearly every day we're working on it, because we've got good communication going on a WhatsApp group, the Electric Vehicle Expo, Cleveland Showgrounds. Hopefully, I think it's going on really well. I think I said that last month, but every month the iterations keep getting more and more. Gary's got the sign done there. That's going to be put up for 2 weeks beforehand, isn't it, Gary? At the actual showgrounds. 4 weeks, okay, perfect. You can't really miss that. And what else have we done? So Alina Didi, that has Give It a Whirl, has also helped us with the registration for vehicles that are looking to show their car or take people for test rides, as well as people who want to book in to do a test ride. So don't know how to word that any better, but yeah, so if you are thinking of bringing your EV to the event, then can you have a look at the website? I think it's in a slide coming up.
There's also a QR code on the bottom of that.
QR codes right here. I wouldn't mind getting some of them out at the charges too. Know what we're going to do. Yeah. Just a couple other things. Just the Toowoomba EV catch-up will be somewhere in central Brisbane. It doesn't necessarily have to be at Toombul if someone else wants to come up with an idea, but kind of CBD-ish would be good. We can do that. Hamilton, we could do that. Get some Eat Street Market night, something. And then hall meeting on the 20th. So before I go any further on future events, there's one other thing I wanted to mention, and that's I've already contacted the UQ Warwick Solar Farm, and they had an open day at the end of July, and I think a lot of us probably missed out on that. I didn't really see much notice of it, but I contacted the person who organised that, and they are more than welcome for us to organise a specific EV, like only the EV drivers or something go there and do an open day for us. So once this is out the way, and maybe we'll have a breather, and then November or something, maybe we'll go down to Warwick and check that out, because it's ridiculous, that place. The amount of panels is just ridiculous. You've never seen anything like it unless you've seen it outside. I think when I went there, it was 70 megawatt, but I think it's even bigger now. I think it's actually, I thought I saw a number saying 120 megawatt, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, it's kilometres across of solar panels, and then kilometres that way too. It's just ridiculous.
And it's on the road. So
yeah, it's right there, and you can actually almost do a loop around it. But I mean, it's looking at the same thing, but it's pretty cool. What have we got? Where do you find the registration details for the webinar? Okay. Simon, you might have to give Les your email address in the chat, and perhaps Les could forward on that email. All right, next one, mate. I think these are some slides of the event. Okay, so there's I can't get over the clarity of this projector. I can actually see it now. It's amazing. Couldn't read anything on there last month, so there you go. We've already discussed that one, so we've already discussed these, but yep, just to run through. That's going virtual. This is what the login page for our event looks like, and it's pretty easy. Just your details, your car, and then down the bottom is just whether you want to display or whether you want to do test rides for 1 hour or 2 hours or whatever. So it's pretty easy. And what will likely happen is if you register, then I will probably make contact with you before the event and maybe just explain what the plan for the day is. It's only a 4-hour event because we just wanted short and sharp, keep people's interest, and not have people tied up for the whole day, especially if they're coming from other areas. It's probably more attractive if it's just a 4-hour thing, but we'll see how that works. It's the first bigger one we've done in a while. So next, thanks. All right, that's events over. You're going to listen to me for a little while tonight. I'm going to let you know now. The Arena Future Fuels Fund, there was a decision announced about the funding, and This is all the DC fast chargers that are not built at the moment that are going to be built in the next likely 2 years. So that is a crazy amount. And what I've gone to the trouble of doing is the slides that I take off PlugShare. So let's see what's next. So this is the current Sunshine Coast. Once again, it's nice and clear now. So they're the current, so this is like a slide I've presented in previous months. And if you go to the next one, Les, here, they're all the extra ones. So they didn't put the locations on the other one, but it's quite a nice form that they give, and you can actually zoom right down and go, well, that's going to be at Coles, or that one's going to be at Ampol, or that one's going to be at MacDonald's. So I did them pretty accurately for where they are, and apparently Noosa needs 5 right on top of each other. But the rest are reasonably spaced. This is actually the big fish, right near the big fish. So Caboolture is actually like right there. Tewantin, Noosaville, Noosa, Coolum Beach, Sunshine Coast Airport, Maroochydore, the University of Sunshine Coast, Skoo, and Caloundra. Now, as I was kind of looking at where they were putting them, they're putting them in important locations where people go, so that's intelligent. So let's have a look at what else there is. I think I do Brisbane North Side. Now, if you take out the CBD, like Brisbane North Side doesn't have too much, but what are we going to end up with? A lot. And the south side's like even worse. But there you go. I mean, far north, you're only really getting, like I live right there, that's using my map, so that's going to be handy for me. There's already one at North Lakes, but at the IKEA, but there's going to be another one there. It is a Westfield, so it might just be near the McDonald's. Burpengary, Caboolture, and there you go. I won't go through all. Royal Brisbane Hospital, I expect. One's going in the CBD. I mean, I couldn't really work out where that one was going. Could be anywhere, but pretty.
These are going to be fast chargers.
DC fast chargers, I would assume 50 or so. There's. I spoke to Tim Harrison, who works at EV Networks, and he said, like, EV Networks have got some funding, as well as the competitors. So the red ones aren't built, and the orange ones are already existing ones. So. And this is not even all of the, like this is, there might even be more on top of this, but this is not this year, it's over the next 2 years. But I mean, if you live here, you're going to have like ridiculous amount of options. So really looking forward to this. South side.
Oh, you still kept Yarraville one.
Yeah, Yarraville was down here. Don't talk to me about Type 1. Type 1 DC fast charger, mate. When you turn up to the charger and it doesn't fit, all right, have a look at that. Pretty great. Can you go back one slide? I mean, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, it's really ridiculous. And I've been asking whoever wanted to listen, could we put one at Cleveland for a while? And they're still not going to put one at Cleveland, but we're going to do Victoria Point, Capalaba, and I think there's like 2 there, so Tingalpa. Yeah, next slide. I mean, there isn't a great deal of people that live in this little spot here. It's mostly like farmland and stuff, but I mean, they're getting some good, really good coverage there, I think. That's amazing, really. Alex Hills, yeah. Les is going to be super busy. Once again, one at the PA hospital, I expected. This one up here. And then another one down the road at Annerley. So, next one, mate. Oh, that's just a list, yeah. It took a long time to do these slides, but yeah, anyway. This is the Gold Coast, because, you know, they don't already have enough. And the next one, yeah, they're getting another splattering. So the border's here somewhere. So there's just Kingscliff and Tweed Head as well. So really, really impressive announcement. And I don't know, this is the previous month's slide where I showed you the question. I just thought, what am I going to do with these infrastructure slides now? Because there's so many going to come online. I mean, it's not like I'm going to have to say, oh, well, if you need to charge between here and Sunshine Coast, you've only got 2-3 options. And now you're going to have like 10 options eventually. So I'll have to, I'm going to have to work out something else to say. So yeah, I know. And I couldn't put all the red dots in here because it would just be red. So, all right, that's infrastructure announcement.
Where's the money coming from?
Arena funding. It's a future fuels fund, and they give it all to the charging companies to build chargers.
They changed it from FFS to FFF now, have they?
The FFF is where the money is for the FFS.
Okay.
Future Fuels Fund and Strategy. Yeah.
There you go.
Can I just say one thing? I don't think you'll find any in Toowoomba.
I didn't do Toowoomba.
No, I realised that when it was announced originally.
Yes.
It wasn't there. Toowoomba is an absolute community when you're driving up there next week. The central business district of Toowoomba is a hazardous for us.
So there's one going to Sandthorpe, definitely is part of it. I'm not saying that that's not Toowoomba, but there's one going to Sandthorpe, and there's others in that area. Or is that the cache?
Well, you've got Gatton cache, and you've got Charlton cache, and you've got the supercharger. And there's is it Pacific Fuels is out there as well?
Pacific Fuels are great. You've got Charlton, which is the Queensland Superhighway.
Yep.
You've got the Tesla superchargers at the golf club. That's it.
Yep. Yeah.
So
I'm sure you'll get more. I'm sure you'll get more. Well, the petrol companies will definitely, and the Maccas and stuff like that, I think they'll just start getting on board, and there'll just be one at every outlet now from Ampol, yeah. All right, that covers that. This is a bit of fun that I'm doing for my second property that's has no services whatsoever. I was going to put some pictures on of my property, but I didn't want to bore you with that. I'll just show you the good stuff. This was Graham's car when we took the batteries out, and I think a lot of you have already seen this car, so won't spend too much time on that, but there's 42 leaf cells. And Graham, at the end of one of the meetings, said he was selling them, and I said, all right, how much? And I need something for electricity at my property, because essentially the story goes, to do anything, like I tried to have corded power tools because I used to have drills and the batteries would get broken after a while because I wouldn't use them, but I use tools probably a lot more these days than I did back then. But I just learned a lesson that I'd rather actually have a corded tool. So now I have a lot of corded tools, and any time I want to cut a piece of wood or drill or do something like that, you have to start the generator, so even during the day. So what I've been working on is a few things at the property, like setting up water and setting up electricity and setting up toilets. So this was going some part of the way to setting up the electricity. So, and the other thing is that Graham did sell, well, I don't really know what the condition of these batteries are exactly, but the price that Graham sold them to me for was perfectly fine, in my opinion. Cheap compared to what you would buy a brand new similar size battery for. But here they are at my place, just out of the car. Next one, mate. Yeah, plug in your battery, mate. So Francisco's helped me at his workshop with this, and this is one of the early photos where, so the first thing essentially we did was, it's going to be 48 volt. So I'm having 7 packs of 6. So you can see that I've got that in parallel there, and then yeah, essentially we're going to have 48 volt running about 54 to 56 volt at the top, somewhere like that. Haven't quite set those parameters yet, but this is one of the early photos, and turns out Francisco's a handy friend to have when it comes to this sort of stuff. So went and bought the aluminium. So we discussed copper bus bar versus thicker aluminium, and aluminium down the road was quite cheap. And Francisco has a CNC machine, which was very handy to just next one, and they fit perfectly. So didn't have any problems at all once they were drilled. It was all, and what Francisco described was you could put like marker on a piece of metal and then like drill, but you just don't get the accuracy, obviously, that you do of a CNC machine. It's very accurate to like tenths of a millimetre and that type of thing. So it's far better to use that and end up with a perfect product. So that's what we did. We got next. There we go. It's all hooked up and balancing there. Nothing too dramatic, but just a progress photo. All right. So the next part of it was to set up the contactor, and so this is obviously going to connect to the battery, and there's the BMS. Can't really see it, but there's the BMS on the side there, and we put on this to so that's 160 amp DC circuit breaker contactor, whatever it's called. And then this is just to pre-charge the inverter, so with a resistor there. So that's hooked in as well. So there's a little bit of a sequence when you first set it up, just to put some charge into the inverter. And then 175 amp Anderson plug out, which goes directly into the inverter. So next slide, please, Les. All right, there's just another shot of it. Just put a bit of, sorry, just back one sec, mate. Just another little design thing, just so we don't have to pull the whole thing apart every time. Just that rod doesn't go all the way through, it's just separated there, so we can pull this in and out. All right, and there's the inverter, 8 kilowatt, massive overkill. I use like 200-300 watts to run lights when I'm up there, but I think when you go up, when you get this type of thing, it's likely that I'll start running fridges and other bits and pieces constantly. So I'm only up there, I'm not up there like constantly myself, so it might be 2-3 times a week or something like that, maybe once a fortnight. So
you never have too much, John. You want an air compressor or something one day.
Yes. Well, the other thing we discussed was like peak load for a short period of time as well. So at 5, I was really looking at a 5 kilowatt, and then I thought, because I mean, like, yeah, but this future proofs a fair bit. So, and this thing's brand new as well, like from the company as well, and you can like pull that out and have that displayed somewhere, and it's pretty good. Looking forward to that. Since this last photo, I think this is the last photo, isn't it? Since that, we've started working on the cell monitors as well, programming them, and perhaps in another month or so I can give you another update. Can you actually put YouTube on or not?
I don't know what the audio is.
You don't need audio.
And what size panel array?
What's that, sorry?
It's solar panel array.
Oh yes, well I probably should have discussed that, shouldn't I? So it's for solar as well. So, I mean, we've all seen solar panels, so I didn't really take photos of that, but what I did, just before you play that, mate, so I looked online to see how much second-hand solar panels was, because I've got a bit of a belief that people are just upgrading their solar panels, but there's actually probably a lot of capacity still left in what people are taking off their roofs, especially like if you hunt around for a little while, you'll probably get a good product. And I bought 11 190 watt panels, which were, I think the ad said they were maybe 6 or 7 years old. They looked perfectly fine, like they were clean. There was the stickers on the back were still nice and fresh. $150, and one of the AEVA members here also gifted me another 11 250 watt panels. So that makes around, I think it's just under 5 kilowatts, about 4.9 kilowatt panels. And that will be part of the update, because I have to build the whole sort of structure to mount them, because it's not going on a roof, because I've just got acres and acres to put them anywhere. So I'm going to build the structure, and then, yeah, let's just, actually, don't play the whole thing. Can you just want to, how long was it? Oh, this is cool. It's not touchscreen.
Where do you want to go to?
Let's go to here. Let's go to there. All right, so this was when I load tested the inverter itself. Nothing but the bit of dodgy here, but just wanted to test the inverter, because, I mean, what are you going to plug a 100 watt fan into a 8 kilowatt inverter to give it a test? No. So just 10 amps, we ran the charger over to the Kona, just as a load test. So I thought that was pretty cool, actually, just as a first run. Nothing smoked and nothing blew up. And yeah, there you go.
That'll be a good thing, because you won't be able to work in it either. Like, I've got a 3,000 watt inverter, and I can charge the MG, but the little cooling fan kicks in, and
Yeah.
so it's working hard.
2.1 kilowatt load test. So I was pretty happy with that. Yeah, that's where we're up to. So coming along quite well. And I'll give you an update in future months. Is it worth running the IMEO video now? Maybe not. We'll just sit here watching YouTube all night. Okay. I think Jeff wants to chat now. Where's Jeff gone? There we are.
So the first question, I suppose, is who am I and what qualifications do I have to speak on amphibious caravan design, hybrid energy amphibious caravan? And the answer is I have no qualifications whatsoever. But I speak from the point of view of a consumer and customer, what I would like to have or invent or stimulate other people to build. But I'll give you a little bit of the evolution of my thoughts. JD says he doesn't mind if I keep droning on and on, but you got to sort of yank me back into the center if I go off tangent. So if we can go back into the folder, the main folder, and yeah, so just you can just click on French Canals 1 and then just quickly 1, 2, 3, 4. So back in 2000 and October 2019, I and a few friends chartered this narrow canal boat, and we had this trip through the French canals. Great, living space, like living in a caravan on water. Everything nicely set up to suit the narrow beam of the canal boats. You can just flick through the next few pages. So I had, we were kind of short-handed to operate these manual locks, and I actually wrote this article on what you do if you are short-handed, and that's been published in Practical Boat Owner, which is a UK magazine. Just go through page 3 and then page 4. As you can see, it's quite involved. quite an involved procedure to transit through those locks. And page 4 now. I actually live aboard a boat, 36-foot catamaran, so it's actually the smallest ocean-capable catamaran there is, and it's pretty comfortable. But obviously, it's not a land vehicle. It suits my purposes. I was just using it as a floating tiny house for a long time, and I couldn't get away to do what I wanted to do because of work commitments, but the workload actually sort of dried up quite a lot at the onset of COVID. So July last year, I and a friend, a crew, took the catamaran up to the Whitsunday Islands, and so if you just go to South Whitsundays, yeah, so we spent, it took about more than a month, well, almost a month just on coastal hops to get all the way up to Airlie Beach and reprovision at Airlie Beach, and then did a lot of exploration of the islands, and coming back sort of midway back from the Whitsundays is the Keppel Bay area, and at anchor at North Keppel Island. I was meant to pick up one crew at Keppel Bay Marina, which is on the mainland, but anchored at North Keppel Island, my boat got struck by lightning, and it fried all the electrics. Luckily, I was able to start the starboard engine. Port engine was completely fried. Had to haul up the anchor, and was able to motor to the entrance of Keppel Bay Marina and got a tow in. But the worst thing was the delay of repairs. That was incredibly frustrating, and I won't get into it. But that was October 28th when my boat was struck by lightning, and I couldn't get the repairs completed till, so I had to stay there Christmas, New Year. Couldn't get things repaired till mid to late February. So I only managed to get back, much later to Brisbane. So my thoughts have evolved through these experiences. Obviously, it wasn't possible to bring my catamaran back from the Yeppoon area overland to get it repaired in Brisbane. But I was thinking, what if I actually had a liveaboard vessel which could drive all the way there, and then once you're up at Airlie Beach or Shute Harbour, then you go exploring around those islands, and when you're done there, you can go back on land and drive somewhere else, or drive back down. And if it was, hybrid energy vehicle, even better. If it can use wind power, even better. And I think I have actually hit on a solution, but it will be helpful to get the input of the electric vehicle experts, which is you folks. So maybe you can disavow me of any terrible delusions I might have, but let's go through things anyway, the description of what the design involves. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the evolution of amphibious vehicles. So obviously, the idea of amphibious vehicles is not new. Probably the first guy who built a wooden cart with wooden wheels and then tried to cross a stream and then got caught in the water in the flood and was floating downstream. I was thinking, this can serve as a boat as well. But obviously, we'd like to have an amphibious vehicle of our own, which is slightly more advanced than that. You'll all be familiar with the Aqueduct, that Gold Coast tourist vehicle. So you would have seen it sort of plodding along on the road, and then it goes into the water, and it sort of it really plods along very, very slowly in the water. And there's a video clip on that. So, sorry, is it Chris? Les, can you go to the other folder, Amphibious videos? Yeah, Aqueduct, that's the one. Bit of free publicity for them now.
Like that, you would take a tour on the land and then go into the water and then you do a cruise. You also get an opportunity to ride the duck. So they come up one by one and they get to see the duck. Our evening's a really nice, beautiful sunset to give you back over to you. I come on this when I was a kid and now I'm bringing my kids and the grandparents coming along to it. That makes us feel it. It's a really great way to get started.
Anyone knows the origins of the Aqueduct? It was originally designed as a World War II troop-carrying vehicle, a ship-to-shore troop-carrying vehicle. And as you can see, it doesn't travel too fast on land, although it is a proper road vehicle, but it's really just sort of the hull drag from the wheels as well, the water drag makes it incredibly slow. So I think the proper name for the Aqueduct should have been the sitting duck. But if you think that's cool as a tourist, I'll show you something really cool. So we can go into the Gibbs video clip. And maybe skip the first 1/3. Maybe just keep advancing it. Just want to show you the, there you go. So that's a pretty speedy coupe on the road.
Like maybe one. Too quickly. The power's going to serve.
Get on the plane.
Yeah.
Only $3 million. Oh, Alan Jones. Looks like Alan Jones. It looks like it. Yeah.
I think we can stop there, please. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? That's truly high performance on the road, in the water, but there are disadvantages. So what are the disadvantages? Well, for good performance on the water, you want to remove the drag of the wheel, so you have to have a retractable wheel mechanism. But this is, in other senses, it's a conventional vehicle because it needs to have transmission, mechanical transmission. So they had a whole bunch of engineers devise these complicated means by which the wheels could retract. To me, that means there's plenty of scope for failure. The more complicated things are, the more likely, the greater the chances are for any one of the mechanisms to fail. It also used proprietary water jet technology, and I think it must be a terrible fuel guzzler. So because of all of these things, in fact, it didn't work out as a viable commercial venture. I don't think you can buy any new ones anymore. You can probably buy ones which were the first generation that were made, and they're probably super expensive, and there's no guarantee of being able to repair them if anything goes wrong. So there's so many, and they were super expensive, so many disadvantages. So yes, it's really cool, but a bit of a dead end. Now, it is great to to be able to tow your caravan behind your vehicle and then go on the water and go exploring islands or waterways. But the existing vehicles that we do have, well, they're not actually self-propelled caravans. So I'll show you a couple. One is a real plodder. This one, the Sealander. This is a compact little towable caravan. That's actually electric outboard. So the thing about the Sealander is it has wheels incorporated to its undercarriage, so you don't need a separate trailer. So that's convenient. No separate trailer, but the wheels are not retractable. They're just passive wheels, non-retractable, and therefore the performance on water is terrible. And I don't think it looks very seaworthy. It looks as though it could tip over at any moment. So this is not an ideal vehicle for me anyway. Can we skip to the next one? Now the next one is cool. There are two brands with similar designs that are built in Australia. This one's called a Caraboat. The other one's called Boaterhome. Boaterhome is a Queensland-based company, I believe.
That's not so bad. Yeah. Don't know how much it is, but...
The culmination of more than 4 years development. Although the concept is not new, we believe that this is as good as it gets. A stylish, sweet, aerodynamic caravan that is easy to tow, no higher than a normal off-road van. But then, when in boat mode, you have a safe, high-performance, livable boat. Travellers will now have the ability to see all of this wonderful country with hundreds of estuaries, rivers and lakes to explore. The high speed, long range, great economy and extreme shallow draft of the caravan gives travellers the perfect platform to discover all the hidden treasures our fantastic waterways have to offer. Boasts some amazing features, many of which are standard equipment. Most models have engine help, which when in caravan mode, both steering and engine controls are required. They conveniently disappear into a cupboard. Twin engine design not only is a great safety feature, but also makes for easy control and manoeuvrability. Standard equipment, is for two 30 horsepower fuel-injected 4-stroke outboards, which combined put around 30 amps back into the batteries and are easily pull-started if required. Top speed is approximately 17 knots, and a very economical cruise speed is around 13 knots. The Carabo draws approximately 180 millimetres, which allows it to be easily nudged up against river banks and sneak into very shallow anchorages. Carabo is easily launched and recovered thanks to a purpose-built trailer. Four-wheel disc brakes and breakaway safety system are standard equipment.
So we can stop there.
240 tanks and up to 80 litres of fuel allows for lengthy cruise.
There's batteries.
So that's a nice little toy to have, isn't it? But we're not quite there yet. And there are a lot of drawbacks from my point of view. So it is not electric, it's not hybrid. It uses standard outboards and it needs a trailer. So what do you do when you want to go on your water adventure? You have to have a big hefty four-wheel drive, and you drive it on the trailer to a boat ramp. You drop it into the water. You have to park your four-wheel drive and trailer at the boat ramp area. Then you go exploring on the water in your Carabo. But you have to return to that same ramp. You cannot go to another ramp elsewhere and resume your journey. If you leave your vehicle and your trailer parked somewhere for a couple of weeks, it's open to vandalism, theft, and sure, you can sort of drive down the highway at 110 kilometers per hour, but it is not self-propelled, and there's that weight of the four-wheel drive, there's the weight of the trailer. What if you had a caravan like that, which was self-propelled? So you could just drive that whole vehicle down the ramp, go exploring on the water, go to another ramp somewhere else, get back onto the highway, drive down at 100 kilometers an hour to your next destination. But not only that, this is not that seaworthy a vessel because of its relatively narrow beam, and you're restricted to a maximum width of 2.5 meters because of road widths. So how can we make it even more seaworthy? I have seen caraboats and motorhomes in the Queensland waterways, but only in the Brisbane River, Gold Coast waterways, sheltered areas. So it's definitely not seaworthy enough to be actually going on any coastal journeys. Certainly you wouldn't want to drive up to Shute Harbour, Ellie Beach, and then be exploring the Whitsunday Islands on a vessel like that. I don't think it's seaworthy enough. Can we devise a liveaboard, hybrid energy caravan which is truly amphibious, good performance on land, good performance in the water, and also quite seaworthy, which is able to cope with maybe 3-meter waves, 6-meter swells? And I believe we can. So now we go on to my proposed design. So first is the Outrigger Deployment picture. So this was my first iteration of how we can have outboards which are stowed on the roof, if you scroll to the top of it. So they're stowed on the roof, and then there are these bracing struts, and you can flip the pontoon out, and then if we can scroll down now, and by means of a series of lines, we deploy pontoons on both sides. Now, we actually have materials which are strong enough to cope with all of the movements of the waves. And this material is called Dyneema. It particularly has very high tensile strength, even stronger, much stronger than steel. And a lot of, well, not a lot, but the increasing number of boats these days which are using Dyneema stays which hold up the mast instead of steel stays. So it's feasible, and that, it's a material you can wind around a winch, and you can control the descent and ascent by means of that winch. I won't get into the details of the deployment and retrieval of the pontoons. It's kind of self-explanatory here. The dimensions, I was thinking to make it 2.4 meters external beam, and it'll be a little bit wider if you include the wheel struts. And the wheels would flip up and down in this manner, not forward and backwards along the longitudinal axis, but more like transverse, so that in road mode, it actually becomes narrower than 2.5 meters. Doesn't matter if it flips up and becomes wider than 2.5 meters when you're heading into the water. In fact, your width of the whole vessel will probably be, 4 meters or something when you're on the water. So that's the one iteration of my idea for the pontoons. And there's another one which might be better. If we can go to number 2, alternate outriggers, in which the spar, which holds the pontoon horizontally, it's basically retractable. It slides in and out within the base of the craft, and of course you have other bracing struts which stabilize it. So that's another means of the advantage of this arrangement is it's a lot neater, really, and the spars are all hidden away when it's all folded up nicely. But the disadvantages are, firstly, it can only be deployed and retracted when you are on land. So you can't do it if you have gone down the ramp into the water. You can't really do it from within the water, whereas the other method, which is controlled by lines, you can. And the other disadvantage is, if you're driving along, it can be, the pontoons can be impacted by grit and gravel and things like that. But it is actually a neater arrangement. And these spar hooking points or hook anchor points can be used to hook on your fenders as well if you are transiting through a canal or mooring up at a berth. So we can go to the next one, please. Are there any yachties or boaties in the audience? Sailors? Yeah, excellent. Okay, so this is my idea of how you can actually stow and deploy the electric outboards. And the reason why I want electric outboards and an electrically powered road vehicle is basically it's a single energy source or medium which can be used to power things both on land and in the water. But where you get the electricity from is another thing, which we'll get into later. But the thing about having these wheels, the key really to simplifying things in a way is actually having electric wheel hub motors. Now, my understanding is that's not really a big commercial thing these days, but it's very, very promising. And I looked up a few companies which are actually producing wheel hub motors for cars, and they're increasingly testing it out in military applications, and apparently it can cope with a lot of punishment. The key will be to build them to very high marine specifications to ensure that they are not affected by immersion in salt water or constant exposure to salt spray. But I don't think there are any technological hurdles. From the reports I read, the testing that they've been through, they've been able to cope with a lot of battering and driving through streams and all sorts of things. So I think it's entirely viable. When you're in road mode, obviously, as you know, the steering is done by means of differential speeds in different wheels. So like if you're turning right, the microprocessor tells the wheels on the right to speed up and the wheels on the left to maybe be the same or slow down, depending on the rate of turn. So that is the main area of complexity, the fact that you need to have microprocessors to be running the wheels, to be instructing the wheels how to perform. But the thing is, it can do things which ordinary vehicles can't do. For example, it can turn on a dime. You can just reverse the movement of wheels on one side and make the others on the other side go forward, and it can turn in a dime that way. So you won't need to have any mechanical transmission, and that is why you'll be able to flip the wheels up and down, as I've depicted in the pictures. And of course, with electric motors, you can have regenerative braking when you're slowing down. So maybe half of the braking might be regenerative, and if you need to have more urgent braking, then you do so by mechanical disc brakes. Sorry, there's a question?
Yeah, I think we could do both. Because so everybody can hear. My hands up, so I'm a vehicle engineer by background. We're going into this. So future it's very. There are challenges with trying to do like that tank approach to driving. So differential speed on wheels. You can't get the control of the knee. It works on dirt, it works on slip, it doesn't work with grip. So tyres on roads don't slip. And when they do this, generally not a good thing. And when you try and differentially turn like a tank, so that's kind of what it's trying to do, on tarmac, with rubber wheels, rubber tyres, what you do is you run your tyres away, and you've got a lot of energy to do so. So the only way to steer the vehicle is by turning the wheels geometry-wise. I don't think you should continue to pursue a concept of a slip steer kind of approach, because it just doesn't work. That's my thought to you. The other thing around hub motors, there is a number of hub motor suppliers. I think that's absolutely an opportunity. There are people out there, most of them are slow speed, most of them are for trikes and three-wheelers and things like tuk-tuks from Southeast Asia. So there are some people out there, and there's some folks who work in that industry. So that's an opportunity. My biggest challenge here outside the steering is actually the suspension. How do you deal with suspending those wheels which are going to drop down and having decent suspension so you can actually drive on the road? I love the concept, I love the desire for this kind of thing. I would love to own something like this if I could magic it up, but I have some deep concerns with the engineering and the road going side, where it's really challenging. Part of the reason why it's always been difficult to do. But I just thought I'd provide those couple of things, but slip steer is not a viable way. You're going to get a road.
So I'm not an engineer, so these ideas are beyond me. And my suggestion is that a lot of research will be required. And what the knowledge that I've gained is basically from reading articles which said that this or that is viable. The other thing is if you can't, if it depends on some swivel movement of the wheels, perhaps you can get away with just slight swivel movement combined with differential speeds. I don't know. What I would like to see is maybe a team of university postgrads, or a team of different engineers who might be interested in this for commercial means to get together and see whether such problems can be solved. So these are just thoughts I'm just throwing out, and it's kind of throwing out a challenge to people to maybe work things through to see if this is actually going to be a viable prospect. So that's it anyway in a nutshell. If there are any other comments from anyone else? Anybody has any like university links where you might be able to drum up enthusiasm in this idea? Or industry links?
No other thoughts? Yeah, it is a lot. You've put a lot of effort into that. Yeah. So, but without engineering it and getting it all past like vehicle standards and stuff like that, that's the hard part with designing anything, I think.
It's a big process. As you say, I mean, it will involve multidisciplinary teams, from electrical experts to experts in microprocessors and software. And the other thing about the hybrid energy is something that I didn't actually talk too much about. And my view is that rather than be 100% electric, I like it to be a plug-in petrol electric vehicle. So you actually have a petrol electrical generator which runs at constant optimal RPMs and is keeping your lithium battery array topped up, and that is what powers your wheels or your outboards. And there are other ways by which you can also charge the batteries either by solar, by regenerative braking from the wheels, or even by current tidal power from which spin the propellers. And the other thing I didn't actually talk about very quickly is that you could also use wind power. I mean, you could like stow a parasail in the foredeck compartment, and then if you're going downwind or even sort of beam reach, you can deploy the parasail, and that's free energy. And as you're as you're sailing along, it's free wind energy, and that will passively spin your propellers, which can also charge your batteries. So in that sense, that's another way by which it is a hybrid energy caravan.
All right, well, thank you very much, Jeff. Yep, clap for that one. All right. We normally have a discussion after, mate, so we can have a few people that got any questions, you can answer them for them. Nathan, you're up now, and then Francisco's up after. Nathan's just mentioned that next bit is about hydrogen, so don't throw anything at him, but other than the mic. But it's designed to be interactive, like answering questions, so we will throw the mic around for some feedback. Okay? Thanks, mate.
Yeah, take that. Thanks, John. I understand there's quite a few people online tonight because of COVID and all the rest of it, and who are interested in this particular section. So we'll use the mic where we can so that they can hear what's going on and be part of it, and maybe ask some questions as well. So, and look, this is probably a good tie-in to that last piece around really challenging engineering problems. That particular arrangement, it's really challenging, it's really difficult, really harsh environments, and lots of energy. So building vehicles of any nature with all of these different types of technologies is not an easy feat. I've worked in the automotive industry for 25 years now at major manufacturers, and the stuff they have to do to make stuff like much simpler than that work is really tough. And we're going to have a look tonight at hydrogen. So that's a whole nother beast of really hard, really tough, but really new technology. So tonight what I was going to start with is about 5 slides on some of the fundamentals around hydrogen. Not the fundamentals you might have read about, but some of the stuff that the Australian government's been doing and some other contemporaries of mine have been doing in it, just to give you a bit of a feel on hydrogen. Now, I suspect that hydrogen's a topic that's of interest to this room because it's a potential green energy solution, but we're kind of battery electric people in this room, so we're kind of talking about the the other side or the dark side or however you want to do it. But for that reason, I wanted to bring it out. I want to talk about it with you, particularly looking at, you know, our road-going vehicles, light and heavy vehicles, but, you know, we'll probably spend a fair bit of time talking about light vehicles. So we'll hit the first slide and we'll go from there. Now, most of you folks have probably had a bit of an understanding of what the deal is with a hydrogen vehicle. It's basically an electric vehicle with a small battery, a tank and a fuel cell. Not going to talk to you about how that works tonight particularly, other than, yep, there are a bunch of tanks instead of batteries. There is a small battery because it needs to have a buffer. There is a fuel cell, which is kind of, you know, turns gas into water and electricity and goes from there. Trucks, same concept, just everything's scaled up a bit. And it's simply an electric vehicle. All the motors and other bits and pieces are basically an electric vehicle, but just tanks for batteries and a fuel cell in there as well. Simplified. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But that was not where I was going to spend most of my time. The concept here is maybe over the next couple of months with my talk or my and Mark's talks, we would take some of the questions that come tonight or explore some of them and take some of the questions away to see what this audience wants to know about with regards to hydrogen. And tonight's part one, kind of the intro and the explore. And if there's enough content and interest, next time we'll do part two with a bunch of drill downs on that. So we'll go to the next slide. So what is the government saying about hydrogen? They're super excited, aren't they? Well, clearly, hydrogen has the potential to be a replacement for our fossil fuel exports. There's a potential, but some of the realities around that are a little bit more challenging, and there's lots of engineering to go on between them. But the federal government has committed hundreds of millions of dollars to developing hydrogen plants, generation plants, green hydrogen mostly, but not all green hydrogen. Our good friends at the federal government have interest in what they're calling clean hydrogen, which is somewhat otherwise known as blue hydrogen, which is where you use gas, they split it up, turns into hydrogen, turns into carbon, and then they try and take that carbon and sequester it. I'm not going to talk about CCS tonight, other than it doesn't work anywhere in the world yet. But they're spending a bunch of money on that. 275 million of this many hundreds of millions is going into clean hydrogen. There's no such thing as clean hydrogen, except for that is split by splitting water for with electricity that is generated from renewables. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. And the Future Fuels Fund, which we saw a whole bunch of charges coming our way. Thank you, John, for that before. I thought it was awesome. We're going to see somewhere in the order of many tens of millions of dollars going into putting in hydrogen stations around our capital cities to support hydrogen vehicles within the next round, I believe. Not announced yet, but that's my understanding. In Queensland, we have a dedicated hydrogen minister, only state to do so. It is actually our energy minister as well, Mick DeBrenny, and he's got hydrogen as a specific element to his portfolio. And the Queensland government has spent about $20 million so far on hydrogen generation, but proper, what I would call proper green hydrogen, in that it is coming from renewables and splitting water in electrolysis, and they're having a look at what to do with it there, particularly from an export point of view, or for the use in demand areas that it makes sense for. Other states are doing similar. So we moved on to the next slide. Now, I'm not sure if anybody has seen this before, but there's a gentleman who's sort of in my industry overseas, a guy called Michael Lieberich, and he and his company have put together this. It's called the Hydrogen Ladder. And the concept here is that, hopefully you guys can read this, is that these different deployments of hydrogen are ranked by what they've done the work on the type of deployments that make sense for hydrogen and don't know so much. So the unavoidables. Oh, we've lost the mic. Oh, lost the mic. The unavoidables in the early part of the alphabet up there are those deployments and sectors that we are going to need to have hydrogen, particularly green hydrogen, support in our carbon reduction. So things like fertiliser and things like desulfurisation, those sorts of elements, things like steel. We're definitely going to need to use green hydrogen to help make steel furnaces be warm enough, be hot enough, instead of putting coal in there. And then there's further ones down the alphabet down here which don't make sense because they're not competitive. They're not going to be cost or technically competitive. And if we flick the slide once, it's going to bring up all of our road transport ones, all of our land transport ones, not just road transport. So down the bottom in the red, in the G column, we have bulk e-fuels, so making e-fuels, environmentally friendly or renewable fuels. We're going to need renewable liquid diesel. We're going to need renewable liquid petrol for years to come for other deployments, particularly on vehicles that either need to have that still, we still need to burn it, but it doesn't come from oil, or things like old vehicles, vintage vehicles. Urban delivery, hydrogen fuel cell cars, bottom line. Trains, buses, bottom line. And I wholly agree with this personally. Is my personal opinion. We've got things like regional trucks, so here to Toowoomba or here to beyond, are in that second line of doesn't quite make sense. Rural trains, doesn't quite make sense. And then we've got the one that everybody talks about is long distance trucking and coaching and that sort of thing. It's got to go long distance, we're going to need hydrogen. I would call the middle line there a maybe. Okay, that's a definite maybe. And then off-road vehicles, the one that's green up there, that's mining vehicles. That's like big dump trucks. And it makes sense there. So if we go on a little bit further, this is probably too small for you to see, but I'm going to take you through it. If you click, before you do, I'm just going to talk through this. This is out of the federal government's technology roadmap, technology investment roadmap, written by Dr. Alan Finkel, our previous chief scientist. And down on page 69 or whatever it is this piece here which talks about the cost of abatement. So the cost of saving a tonne of carbon by dollars. The middle point here is it's free, right? So if I use this particular type of vehicle or this particular type of technology, it doesn't cost me any more to save carbon. Anything below the line, it saves me money to save carbon. So here's hybrid vehicles today, 2020, 2022, great green one, hybrid vehicles today, because you're saving fuel and basically you're $1,500 for a Toyota Corolla extra to have a hybrid. You're going to save more than that in fuel, so it's $300 a tonne saving for carbon. So does it make sense? Below the line, definitely makes sense. Near the line, probably makes sense. Way above the line, doesn't make very much sense to do this. And this is something that our federal Minister for Emissions Reduction has very much talked about, is we shouldn't do technologies that don't also save us money. Cost of abatement. I know that's a big thing to take in, but I think you're kind of getting it. Let's take the slide once. Battery electric vehicles. Today, right up the top there, in the light green is today, is battery electric vehicles. For every tonne of carbon we save at the moment with a battery electric vehicle in Australia, it's probably costing about $1,000, something like that, $950, $1,000. And it's just you're buying an expensive car and we're really only saving a 2 tonnes to 3 tonnes a year in a passenger vehicle, so it's not lots, but we're paying a lot for it. However, down here, beyond 2023 is what they're saying, 23 to 2030 and beyond, out to 2050, battery electric vehicles sit about there, so something like $50 below the zero line. We're going to be saving money by driving electric vehicles versus today from a carbon point of view. So that means that it makes total sense. Press the button once more for me. Hydrogen. Hydrogen vehicles in 2031 and beyond will be the same price as a battery electric vehicle today. $1,000 a tonne of carbon. So, and that's green. It's green hydrogen. That's going to be using green hydrogen to support, saving carbon, and hydrogen vehicles are going to be exceptionally expensive to be green. So that's an interesting little insight. I know that's a difficult slide to see, but I just wanted to draw this out. This comes from the federal government and Dr. Alan Finkel. Next one. Now, the many colours, the several shades of hydrogen. You might have heard of lots of different colours of hydrogen. There are many. Black and grey hydrogen is basically what all hydrogen is out there today in any great volume. And hydrogen's required for lots of different things. It's required for fertilisers, for farming. And we've done a bunch of work around that. We've seen it's required for lots and lots of processes, and at the moment you take natural gas and you basically split it and you end up with hydrogen, which you can put in a hydrogen tank and use for whatever, and you end up with carbon because natural gas is CH4, methane. And so that's how 99% of hydrogen is made in the world today. There are many other variations here from grid electricity hydrolysis. It's about 3 times more carboniferous than grey. It's like quite bad. You've got blue hydrogen, which is one everybody talks about at the moment, and that requires grey hydrogen, and then it is taking the carbon that's left over and putting it somewhere, sequestering it. Carbon capture and storage, it's known as. It's not commercially been proven anywhere in the world that it works. I certainly hope it can and will. I think Elon's just recently thrown a bunch of money at an award fund to say, anybody that can make that work, I'll pay you a bunch of money. And I can't remember what it was, but it might have been $1 billion. It was lots. It was like, I'd get out of bed for that. So CCS, carbon capture and storage, carbon sequestration, whatever you want to call it, is a major part of blue hydrogen working. Stanford University put out a paper last week about blue hydrogen that was picked up by Inside EVs it was. And if you want to go and find that, it basically says blue hydrogen is as bad as grey hydrogen, sometimes worse. Well, maybe not quite as bad as brown hydrogen, which is crushed up coal, gasified coal, and then let's split it and use it for hydrogen. So the only variation of clean hydrogen that exists on this map and anywhere else is green hydrogen. Take water. About 9 litres per kilo of water is required to then zap that water with electricity to turn it into hydrogen. And then you get the oxygen as well. So the opportunity is to zap it and then use the hydrogen for hydrogen and then use the oxygen for something else. Because oxygen's useful as well as a gas. So where they're going to start working out where the commercialisation comes from is around that. So lots of deep, I've just blown your brains on hydrogen, but there's a very quick crash course in hydrogen vehicles. If we move on to the next slide, what my intention was here, to try and keep everybody interested and excited and maybe just throw apples at me if you like, is to open up the floor and to ask you if you have any questions around hydrogen and vehicles. I have a better than working knowledge about this stuff. I feel like I've become a bit of an I don't want to use the drip under pressure word, but knowledgeable individual on this stuff. We've done a number of studies as a business. This is what we do, particularly in transport, and I thought we'd use this as a bit of a chance to open the floor up, get everybody going, even a bit of a debate. I'm more than happy for it.
A hydrogen fuel cell,
yes.
In the vehicle itself, or any fuel cell, does it degrade over time? Is it something which needs to be replaced over time?
Yeah, great question, Joel. Thank you. So the answer is yes. It's a chemical reaction going on. There's actually quite a lot of special metals inside a hydrogen fuel cell. There's a lot of rare earths and other bits and pieces that are in there, and the hydrogen has to react with that fuel cell, and then it draws oxygen from the air that has to be really pure and has to be super filtered and all sorts of stuff that goes with that. You might have seen during the Olympics that Toyota fuel cell vehicles, they clean the air as they go. That's on the ad on Channel 7 whilst we're watching the Olympics. So yes, fuel cells do degrade over time. How long? To be honest, I cannot find a straight answer. Some years. If anybody's got any insight on that, I'll take it. You got one?
Yeah, we get pushed hydrogen for the marine industry.
Yep.
We have talked to fuel cell people.
Yep.
The fuel cells, much like Degrade, they don't like to run full speed. They like a sweet point, like most engines.
Yep, midpoint.
Plus, they also, the more you stop them starting, the more they'll deteriorate.
Right.
So there's like a minimal start.
It's a bit of a warm-up, warm-down cycle there that they don't like either.
One start, run one day, and then turn off.
Turn off, yeah. So they like to be on, work in a optimum range and off. Look, I suspect that the technology around that will improve and improve and improve, and maybe it'll go from being a 10-year life to a 15-year life to beyond. So what our batteries are starting to do. Yeah, that's what I'm expecting to see. So yes, they do degrade. How long they take, I don't know. I have heard various things of 10,000 hours, and I've heard longer. So I think it's also manufacturer dependent. But yes, it is a what's the word for it? Degrading item. Yep. Yep, up the back, please.
What about shipping? Is there anything in shipping?
Yeah. So back up on our the electric vehicle. We do a bit of shipping. Yes, there is a marine. There was a paper that came out just 3 weeks ago commissioned by the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, CEFC. They're the people who help ARENA work out what's going on. They graded pretty much every section, every element of demand for hydrogen, and they said that marine areas, marine and shipping, is a high priority or high potential, highly dependent is the word they use, on using hydrogen to decarbonise. There's definitely going to be some space in shipping. The bigger the ship, the more reliant, and that's an area where hydrogen has a very good home. Oh, I've got some questions. Hang on. Good. Cool. Top one. This one here. What am I reading? So that one there. The main benefit of our home solar charge, Bev, is that you can create your own energy at home. Yes. I love it. Okay, so just take that one for a second. There was a question online. You may have seen that. Having the ability to be energy independent. One of the best parts of owning a Bev. I make my own. I use my own. I don't use it when I don't want to. Whatever. Hydrogen, you are tied to the supply from big chemical. I won't call it big oil because it's not all oil. From big chemical. So definitely something to be considering. I would be considering. Good. Next question up here. Okay, so our solar sizing our PV maxed 23 kilowatts. I wanted a battery storage and charge BEV, but I had an idea that maybe in the future we could create hydrogen at home and have removable tanks, and you could fill things and whatever. Okay, so question one. Storage seems to be a bigger one. Does home storage, shared garage, blah, 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 seem like a possibility? So there is a company in Sydney who thinks they're going to make a storage system with 30 kilowatt capability that you literally plumb into your water system and you plug into your solar system, and they're going to make hydrogen storage. You go back to the ladder, the hydrogen ladder that was there before. Small scale storage is in the red. Large scale, multi-season, like multi-month storage, it's up in about a C or a B. It's up in the maybe to good. So I would say that there is a company in Australia that is trying to do this, and if you want to go and have a look at them, it starts with L, I can't remember what it's called. I think the inefficiencies around hydrogen, which I'm not going into tonight, but we could do if you wanted to, is probably where you're going to be wasting a lot on the roof. Well, it's comparative. So the hydrogen space at the moment is saying a lot about hydrogen is more efficient than petrol and diesel. That's correct. Petrol and diesel's 30-40% efficient. Hydrogen's about 50% efficient. Battery electric is about 95% efficient. So it's okay. So Yay, we got second place. It's like Valtteri Bottas, woohoo. Hang on, we'll come to you, Jan. We've got Graham over here, please. Which was? Making it home. So I don't think, let's just explore, can I make my own hydrogen in my own system at home and then fill my own car? A hydrogen filling station at the moment costs about $2 million to have the capacity to make 50 kilos a day, which is 10 cars. It will get cheaper, but the compression that's around, the compression required, the refrigeration required, the energy required about moving the gas of hydrogen around is exceptionally high. Exceptionally high. Green Energy Council's Day conference last week explained that it makes far more economic sense to use renewable energy, directly convert bauxite, say, into aluminium, than producing hydrogen to do the same. Possibly, not my area of expertise, but I would say that there are energy losses. Heating up rocks or zapping rocks, I'm sure all of those things use a lot of energy, and I'm not sure which one would be better. I know that as you get hotter, electricity has its limits. Jan?
Yeah, look, my question is, how do we ensure that this hydrogen industry isn't used to prop up the fossil fuel industry?
It absolutely is going to be used to prop up the fuel industry. Yeah.
There's an article here by in Renew Economy that says, study finds blue hydrogen, which is this gas-fired hydrogen, Western climate than burning coal and gas.
That's exactly the report I'm talking about. It came out a couple of days ago by Stanford University. So yes, there are some challenges around that. We'll get this over to Francesco. So absolutely, it is likely to continue to, big oil's not bad at all. They do what they do. This is going to give them an opportunity to keep pulling gas out of the ground, and that's probably the concern. Francesco.
Nobody seems to talk about how much it actually costs to maintain like a hydrogen fuel cell. Like you was talking about the buses in Japan cleaning the air. So obviously they must have some filter.
Absolutely.
Replaced, and nobody ever says how long they last and how much they cost.
Yeah, and that's a real concern. So there's a couple of really cool, I'm not anti-hydrogen, please don't get me wrong. There is a couple of really cool projects that are being done up in the northwest of Australia. And for those who know, it's with Fortescue Metals and Twiggy Forest, and they're doing buses for crew transport and mine to airport, and they're also doing some mining trucks, and hot, dry, dusty, iron-filled soil. They are having massive problems with filters. The filtration for the air that goes into a hydrogen fuel cell has to be exceptionally high. Like we're talking like micron type levels, and it is obviously a really challenging thing when you've got a dusty environment like we do here in Australia. And yes, maintenance of those is going to be a challenge. Yeah. So look, fuel cells are pretty much go for as long as they go until they don't anymore. So that was the question that Joel had over here before. That'll be what it is, and I think there'll be, just like any product, some are better than others. So I'm sure that's going to be a thing to look at. Other maintenance, it's an EV ultimately, and then there's tanks and the valves and the pipes and the bits and pieces that go with that. So there are carbon fibre tanks. The fuel is being stored at 350 bar, 350 times the pressure that we're living in right now, or 700, but mostly 350 at the moment. And so, that's some pressure. And and the carbon fibre tanks that look like Monte Cristo cigars kind of thing, they're kind of that tube with a rounded end generally. And so they'll have a tank life. What that tank life is, I think, is yet to be fully understood, because it's still quite, broadly experimental.
Scuba tanks only 220.
Exactly. So, I'll throw out some of those numbers so those people who can kind of, put that into context. Got a question up the back there.
I just make that last question.
Sure.
Yeah, you touched on this a bit. Hydrogen can be stored as a string
Yes.
Have you got any thoughts on any of the other miracle storage technologies that are being touted?
So there's definitely a lot of talk at the moment about ammonia. So let's go sort of, you've got hydrogen gas at first level storage, which is generally for vehicles and so on, is about 350 bar. Then trucks and so on, and maybe even trains and things, they're talking about 700 bar. So more pressure, same amount of energy, half the space. And maybe just pause on that. So first level 350 bar, you need 10 times the space for every litre of diesel, using diesel for example, 10 times the space. So if you've got a 100 litre diesel tank that's going to run your vehicle and you're going to get your range on, you need 1,000 litres of space. 1,000 litres of space. Go up to 700 bar, it's half that roughly. It's about 6 times. So, okay, you can get more in a small space. And it leaks. There's leakage in the tank. Some people say there isn't, but I've seen data that says there is. Tanks leak, you know, it happens. And with the smallest atom we have in the world, it's going to leak. And then there's the bigger versions. So ammonia. Australia's probably leading that sort of stuff, doing great stuff. You know, CSIRO's all over it. Super experimental, super lab stuff. Hopefully it works, because I think that might be how to move lots of hydrogen around our world and be a way to deal with it. I think there may be a pathway at some stage to take ammonia and put it in some sort of fuel cell-y kind of arrangement, but right now that's really, really early on. So before I hand back to John, that was a really good question, and I think maybe we can explore that. I just wanted to get any other elements that people would like me to park for next time, and we'll come back and we'll put some content behind it. Just one word is.
Can I just ask, what other countries are putting money towards Outriggers?
Okay, cool. I'm going to do that next time. I'm not going to answer that right now. I'll do that next time. What else?
Just quickly, you know how if you could use ammonia to store the hydrogen, you could potentially turn it back into natural gas. You know, take carbon dioxide.
Sure. Yep. So e-fuels and so on. Hydrogen will be a feedstock for e-fuels, definitely. Catch me afterwards with any other topics that you'd like, or contact John and he'll contact me, and we'll keep exploring hydrogen if you want to, maybe for one more month.
All right, thank you, Raj. There's a question up here that perhaps we do have just a moment to discuss, because I think it's one of the biggest things that is misunderstood about hydrogen, and that it's getting burnt like diesel and petrol. Sure. It's not getting burnt.
No.
And the question is, the amount of water required worries me. Australia has droughts. Well, what comes out the tailpipe is water.
Yeah, that just goes into
essentially,
the atmosphere on
which
the
is, it's fine. There's no concern about that.
Oh, there is concern about that.
Is there?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a concern about that. I'm more than happy to explore that next time as well.
Okay.
Because the water that comes out of the ground or out of the river to be made into a gas that then goes into a vehicle, that water and that water isn't the same water, and it's going to the same place.
So you're saying there's pollutant added to the water?
No, there's no pollutant added to the water. It just ends up on the road.
Yes, and then washes back into the
evaporates.
Water stream or whatever.
Evaporates, generally, because it's coming out in little drops.
But what comes out of the car isn't
clean.
necessarily dirty.
It's clean, yeah, absolutely. It's a clean tailpipe, a zero tailpipe outcome. Yep, definitely.
All right, so perhaps the nitty-gritty of exactly what happens in the process of the hydrogen car.
Sure.
Because I think we're all pretty comfortable that it's a fuel cell and you need a tank and there's a fuel cell situation. So, all right, are we all just about done? It's quite a long meeting tonight with the speakers. So, all right, I think we will wrap it up there and on the stream, and then Simone can have a chat. All right, thanks very much, guys. Let's speak to you next month.